Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we have stories on what money will do to people. People who suddenly came into a lot of money. What was your horror story of people begging for money? And also guys, if you're in love with the content, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. Alright, let's get to it.
My grandma died a week before Christmas, and she left her house and 1/4 of her small fortune to me. The rest of the money went to my brother and my 2 cousins. My uncles and aunts have been a pain in my back ever since, claiming that the money/house are theirs, etc. And I've also been approached by people who I haven't seen or talked to in a while. Even my ex-girlfriend who dumped me for some douchebag rugby player, started talking to me again and inviting me to places, and she's still dating the same guy. Well anyway, I'm not naive enough to lend those people money or even befriend them. Luckily, I have good friends and my brother as advisors.
Hey man, you can always still bang the ex-girlfriend, every once in a while. No strings attached of course.
If you got 1/4 and there are 4 cousins, including you and your brother, why do they think they deserve more? Sounds pretty even to me.
No, I think they're upset that the money skipped a generation.
Hey. I'm just curious, what was the size of the total fortune?
1.35 million. I was shocked when I heard about the total amount because my grandma referred to it as,
"Honey, it's just a small little fortune."
Hey dude, but real talk, are you going to bang your ex-girlfriend or not? Were you pissed when she left? How long did you date her for?
honestly, I'm tempted as not gonna lie, but I haven't. And I wasn't really angry about the breakup, I hurt her as well. What pissed me off is the fact that she started dating the guy a week and a half prior to our breakup, but we were 17 at the time, and this was about over a year ago.
I unexpectedly inherited about 4 years' worth of take-home pay. Before I knew how much it would be, I told my best friend I'd be getting a few $1,000s. She immediately asked me,
"Hey? You should take me on a trip around Europe."
That was the biggest thing she asked for, but she made other small requests as well. When the money came through and it was a lot more than I'd anticipated, I did not tell my friend. Instead, I started distancing myself from her. I also did not tell any of my other friends. I did tell my boyfriend. He did not ask for anything. I took him on a trip to Europe.
I have a story as well, although it is still developing at this stage. All throughout school I was a bit of a loser. I didn't do well in class and never really cared. I used to go out all the time with my quote-unquote friends and would hang out with them all the time. After school I didn't do much, other than waste time, until I found my wife, and I wanted to start being better for her. I did a 1-year software development course, and then got a pretty shitty job making almost nothing in my country, South Africa, and then when my wife got pregnant all my friends basically ghosted me. As I wasn't going to be going out partying with them anymore, they wouldn't return my texts or even answer my calls. A few years down the line I landed a very high-paying remote job for a San Francisco-based tech company, $200K plus, while the average salary for a software developer in South Africa is around $30K per year. My wife was very proud of me, I think, so she posted a picture of me on her Facebook standing next to my new car that I had just bought. Not 20 minutes after she posted it, I started getting messages from some of my old, so-called friends, saying that it had been a while, and they wanted to catch up and really missed me. However, there was one guy that I always had a soft spot for, and decided that I would go have dinner with him, and see how the last 4 years of his life treated him. We hadn't even ordered our food yet when he dropped the bomb on me.
Hey man, thanks for meeting me, but I feel that, in a way you owe me money, since I was always there for you, and honestly it would be selfish if you don't give me some because you have so much anyway.
I quietly got up and just left. I eventually changed my number and deactivated my social media accounts, but people still harass my wife and mother to try and get some money out of me. This doesn't even go into the absolute shit I had coming from my dad's side of the family, who are basically hillbillies.
I gotta say, I'm curious about these hillbillies.
Okay, I do have 2 stories about them that I will share. One was a bit funny to me and the other not so much. Story number 1. So my uncle, let's call him Pose, he was always a very jealous and vindictive person, not to mention a raging wife-beating cheating alcoholic. When Pose learned from my mother about my situation he called me up the one day and after a few minutes of being all nice, he asked me if I can help him pay for his medical bills because he is very sick and can't afford medical aid. I was reluctant but thought maybe I can trust him. I told him that he would need to have the doctors email me invoices and I would pay them directly. He agreed and put down the phone. A few days later I got an invoice from a so-called doctor for close to 100,000 rands, which would be around $7,000, but I noticed something was off as the banking details were not in the name of a practice but rather a personal name. I called the doctor on the number on the invoice and they told me that the banking details were incorrect and that they are a general practitioner, who would never charge that much for anything. So what turned out to happen was that Poe had gotten his son to edit an invoice they had gotten from a doctor to change the amount and the banking details to try and trick me into paying a huge sum of money into their bank accounts. This was in November of 2019, all while my grandmother, Poe's mother, was in the hospital on her deathbed. Story number 2, my aunt, who is a massive piece of shit and a total idiot, heard I had some money and decided that it would be a good idea to take out a life insurance policy out on me in case something happened and made herself the beneficiary. One strange thing is that she was the one paying the premium, so it was actually costing her money to do this. Another is that it turns out, she thought that it would pay out from my actual money.
I once took second place in a poker tournament and won $150K. There was an audience of about 200 people when it finished. Common practice was for people to ask winners for a quote-unquote lucky chip. I was almost mobbed by people begging for lucky chips as I left the casino. I had to be escorted by security and paid a friend $300 to follow me in their car, and then we drove all over town for 2 hours to make sure nobody was following me home.
Nice, I wouldn't have thought of the driving part. That's pretty smart. God knows what kind of desperation lives at the fringes of those events.
I've heard that there's a big problem with the casino sleuths, who are small groups of people, usually around 3 to 6, that walk around the casino and scout for people who win big money. If they spot someone, they will call it in to their friends and they will keep an eye on the winner all night until they leave, and then jump them and take everything they have. It's one of the reasons I don't go to casinos. Here's my story. My money came in the form of accidental death inheritance after my dad died in a motorcycle crash. His girlfriend at the time was furious that he left everything to me. She tried to convince me to give her money, and when I refused she took everything, and I mean everything, from his house overnight. She rented 2 U-Hauls and her brother raided the place. Furniture, household supplies, food, clothes, everything was gone. By the time I got there, the only things left were a few t-shirts she left on the floor, and a couple empty cans of soda on the kitchen counter. She even took things that held no monetary value, like a calendar I made my dad for Father's Day one year. It was just colorful cardboard and pictures of us I had glued together. She took it all. She started selling what she could on Facebook, mostly his woodworking tools and fishing gear, and she fled to somewhere in the next state over. We also tried to get help from the police, but they didn't do much. She did a lot of other things that could be considered much bigger legal issues. For instance, she ran a fake GoFundMe, claiming the funds were going to his funeral, and managed to get over 10 grand from his co-workers, but I'm the one who paid for the services. Last I heard, they finally found her in some woodsy town, but I don't know what happened. It's honestly too emotional to deal with, and I've accepted the fact that she most likely destroyed or sold everything already anyway. It's been 2 years since this all happened. It's all horribly sad, though.
I'm so sorry for your loss. People suck. When my grandmother passed years ago, one of her shit sons and new wife went and slept in her bed while she was dying in the hospital. Before she was even pronounced dead, he threw away everything. She wasn't a rich woman, but she had so many family pictures, mementos from traveling, and tons of plants. I just wanted some pictures and a plant or two because I took care of them during the summers for her and I loved it. He put it all in the dumpster. I never liked him and he is a terrible person.
My uncle, my mom's brother, did the very same thing when my lovely grandma passed away. He sold what he could and threw everything else out. My mom was devastated. She forgave him though, 'cause he's her brother, I guess? But to this day I cannot look at him. A couple of years ago my mom had a stroke and was hospitalized. The vulture, who had not called or visited her in years, came over right away and I could have killed him to hear him talk about my mom in hushed tones, practically giving her up for dead. She is doing well, thank goodness. And once he realized she was recovering nicely, he left and has not been seen or heard from since. Some people are just unbelievably, ruthlessly greedy.
Wow, thank you all so much for the overwhelming support. It has been truly heartwarming to see so many responses. I definitely didn't expect this outcome. It means a lot to me. Since this is still getting traction today, I just want to take a quick second to clear something up. I didn't go into much detail in my relationship with his girlfriend and why I refused to give her any money. I genuinely cared for her and her daughters. I saw them as an extension of my family, and as soon as I learned that I was sole beneficiary, I had already been planning to take some money and help them get into a stable apartment and give them all a fresh start. I would have had no problem helping them. Unfortunately, she didn't even give me the chance before she showed her true colors. Before we even had the funeral, she was blowing up my phone every hour on the hour, leaving angry voicemails, coming to my apartment and beating on the doors. She even contacted my mother, making threats, trying to get through her to me. At that time, I hadn't received any money. It isn't like it all just falls in your lap the second the person passes. It was a few months before I got settlements, and even now I'm still in the process of retrieving funds from the rollover 401k, and I was just a scared, broke, naive kid. I had hoped she was just grieving the wrong way, just taking anger out where she could, and that everything would blow over. It didn't. About 2 or 3 days after the funeral, I got a frantic call from my dad's sister that she had called threatening to burn his house down. We rushed over there together, and luckily the house was still standing, but the doors were hanging wide open, and when we went inside, that's when we found out everything was gone. We went to his neighbors and they told us she had been there with a man whose description matched her brother, and described them moving everything out and leaving. I wish they had called the police then, but since they knew her as my dad's girlfriend, they chose not to. My dad's wish was for me to be financially secure and safe. He made sure of that, but I didn't just throw them to the wind and say, good luck. It was a traumatic and confusing situation, and if I could go back in time, I'd make a lot of things different, but I can't.
So a few years out of college, my girlfriend and I were living in a sort of large communal apartment with 5 other people, 2 bedrooms, 2 couches in the common area. I had just gotten a significant promotion at my job, and this whole situation was exceptionally below my means, but my girlfriend was convinced that these were her people and they were all going to become great philosophy writers and poets by living together and sharing experiences. They were all unemployed or underemployed, and experienced moochers, so I was very careful not to let them know I was saving large sums of money with the intent of moving out soon and taking my girlfriend with me, or not. One day the other couple had an argument about rent, and to try and keep them from coming to blows, my girlfriend promised them that I'd cover it for them and showed them one of my pay stubs, which I guess they showed everyone else. I got home from work and walked right into an apartment meeting ambush, where everyone else informed me that they wanted me to contribute more meaningfully and they had put it to a vote before I got back. I told them that I was already paying for their food that they kept guilting my girlfriend into buying for them, topping up the apartment emergency fund instead of stealing from it like the rest of them, and many other things, and that I wasn't going to cover other people's rent as well. The next day when I was at work, someone went into my room and destroyed my laptop, which was the only thing of value I owned at the time. I collected the few things I wanted to take, told my girlfriend I was breaking up with her, and walked out. Edit: I just realized I'm effectively the bad guy from Rent. Well, Rent sucks anyway.
Well, destroying the laptop was a brilliant move. That was bound to convince you to spend more money on them.
Well, the laptop incident was a little more complex than that. It was more like,
hey, someone borrowed your computer to use the internet, because you weren't using it, because we share things, right? And then someone else spilled water all over it by accident, because they left it in the common area. I have no idea who could have done these things, but don't get mad. It's just part of life. Let me know when you get a new laptop, okay?
Ah, okay. I thought someone went into your room and just outright smashed up your property with the understanding that it was retaliation for your selfishness. Still infuriating though.
Cool story, bro. How are these guys doing now? Are they great writers and poets?
well, 6 years later my ex applied for a job with my company, not knowing I was a senior officer. She was interviewed, which is a good sign of having one's shit together, but didn't get the job through no fault of her own. I didn't care enough either way to block her application or call in a favor to get her the job, which is ultimately the fate of everyone in this story, that after exiting my life none of them matter to me anymore.
Alright, fair enough. Did you work for a writing/poetry company though? Or did she give up on that dream in those 6 years?
Actually, as it turns out, he works for Big Poetry. They control all the poetry in this country. My uncle would have been classified as working poor, a job, a wife, a kid, an apartment, but living paycheck to paycheck. Then they won the little lotto, and with another winner, my uncle got like 200k. They walked away from the apartment, bought the largest house in the poorest neighborhood, and their friends always seemed to need something. I remember as a kid, they often had friends living in the guest room. Then they bought 2 new cheap cars, and then come property tax time, and just like that, they were broke and once again working poor.
I know this seems silly, but when you win the lotto they really should put people through some kind of financial class before giving them the money, or set you up with a financial advisor. Some people don't care and will blow it all, others, like your uncle it sounds, just don't understand and get themselves into trouble unintentionally. Some basic education might avoid that.
This is probably the biggest regret of my entire life, and this is a long story, so buckle up. So my granddad died back in 2016. I was 19, unemployed, and in a very bad place mentally. I had also just started experimenting with drugs. I tried to get my shit together by going to college to actually make something of myself, but almost immediately I started falling behind in work and was in over my head. The stress was unreal. Then my granddad's inheritance money came in, over the course of 2 payments, one in late 2016 and the other in early 2017. I got around 12k. I shouldn't have been left all this money in my mental state. By the time the Christmas holidays were over, I had dropped out and essentially lived off my inheritance and college bursary, which was around €800 a month. That still kept coming in even though I'd left. With all the money I had, the mental state I was in and the so-called friends I was hanging about with, I just spiraled into a drug binge that lasted well over a year. As soon as I told my friends that I had all this money, it started small, tap a tenner here, a tenner there, I didn't mind. But then as I delved deeper into trying more drugs and becoming a heavy user, I discovered my best friends had actually been using heroin. I didn't use that shit myself. I was still scared of it, but if my friends were dabbling in it then it surely couldn't be that bad. They were just experimenting, right? Well, that spiraled quickly as well. My friends became full-blown junkies. They were constantly asking for money to stop their withdrawals. On top of this, even my friends that didn't use heroin, but I smoked weed and took coke and acid with, started taking advantage. I was in my own world, totally separate from the reality I was actually being faced with. I was so happy to be in this group of friends who all enjoyed hanging out and getting up all the time. It felt like the best time of my life. I even started kind of dating this girl that was a part of our group. I was infatuated with her and the lifestyle we were living. I bought everyone their fix all the time because it felt like my money was endless and I wanted to be the nice guy that everyone liked. But then the money started running out. I started trying to save the little I had left. People slowly started losing interest in my need to be there. The girl I was seeing left me for my best friend. I gave away probably over 1k to my friends collectively as taps, that I was assured I would get back. I got way less than half back. By the end of 2017 I had completely isolated myself. I had spunked over 12k on drugs and friends who only relied on me to feed their habits. By that point I had pushed most of the other friends I had away because they didn't like seeing how I'd become. It was honestly the worst time of my entire life. Looking back now, it gives me his profound sense of heartbreak, knowing that I put myself and my family through all that. But anyway, good news time. It's 2020 and I'm doing a lot better mentally and physically. I don't take drugs anymore. Not even weed. I have a girlfriend who I've been with for about a year and a half now. I've got a stable job. I still have my bad days, when even getting out of bed feels impossible, but I do it and I still make it to work on time. I still have a ways to go regarding being better with my money and not spending nights out in the town till 3 a.m. But progress is progress, right? Anyway, congrats to anyone who actually read every part of that. I feel like writing all that out was really cathartic for me. Well, onwards and upwards, right?
Hey man, congrats for staying off the drugs, and for getting your shit together and pushing through. Keep it up and don't give up.
I must say, well done getting out of that life. If you go on to stay clean and sober, I think that 12k might be a cheap price to pay for such a big life lesson. Your other friends may end up paying a much higher price. Good luck.
Wow, I just wanted to say, thank you everyone for your kind words. I never expected responses like these. It really means a lot to me and you are all amazing. Again, thank you.
Yikes, here's a positive story. There were a few years where I made a lot more money than one of my friends who was going to college, and I would always pay the bar tab. Now that I'm going back to school living mostly off of savings and he has a 6-figure job, so now he always gets the bar tab. These stories are depressing as hell, but good friendships do exist and money doesn't have to ruin them.
That's actually really nice. Thanks, Mr. British Guy. If you guys like these stories, I recommend watching Knives Out. It's very entertaining. And also guys, if you have any horror stories of your own, be sure to drop them in the comment section. I read and reply to all of them. Mostly because I'm only getting one comment per week, so yeah. Till next time.